Welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast with me, Bryce Bauer. What's interesting is I've been starting to do more social media lately. And in a way, this allows me to see what people are interested in, what topics resonate with them. One thing that has surprised me is that my most popular videos are me talking about being treated poorly by your partner. So I was like, I should do a podcast episode on that. There are a few reasons why I think people end up being pretty mean to their partners. The first thing I think about is that when we become closer and closer to a person, we inevitably see more sides to them. Everyone has a shadow, and that's going to come out at some point as you make the choice to live with them, share finances with them, children with them. All of that weird stuff that we could hold at bay when we were dating is going to come out. For instance, if you weren't taught how to work with your anger, you can try to suppress it as much as possible. At some point, that's going to flare up. And if you don't have a way to process that or repair the damage that was caused, it's going to come up again. This can really snowball. I know some of you have had moments where you lost your cool and you said something or did something that scared your partner. If they now feel less safe with you and you don't know how to manage your emotions, now you're going to be upset that that even happened. And if it happens again or again, now you have this big giant thing that you do not know how to deal with. And you're forced to face the consequences that your wife doesn't feel safe with you. She might not want to have sex with you. She might consider leaving the relationship. And what some men will do in a subconscious way to avoid accountability is to then blame their partner. Well, you made me do that. You just don't want to be with me. You're looking for a way out. You have your own stuff to deal with. You. Now we're in a cycle of blame and resentment. She might be throwing it back at you too. Or maybe she's the one who didn't learn how to deal with their anger. But either way, that's how this pattern can start. It starts with one or both people not knowing how to manage a particular emotion or several emotions, and that can cycle through the relationship, getting worse and worse. Another reason why I think couples tend to put up with more in their relationship than they would in another relationship is that we can start to feel entitled to our partner. You're married me, you're stuck with me, you can't leave me. We might not say this, but it seems fairly obvious in watching some people behave because if they treat their partner poorly and their partner apologizes, doesn't say anything, stand up for themselves, what does that teach the other party? It teaches them that they can kind of say or do whatever they want and their partner's not going to leave. As men, we have to watch out for our controlling behaviors and our entitlement because she can leave. 2/3 of women initiate divorces. What does that tell you? What I make of that is that men don't see it coming. I'm not saying it's always the man's fault, but I do think that men can get blindsided because they're more okay with a dysfunctional relationship and they aren't able to see that on a deeper level, if they don't do what it takes to really show up and help their partner feel safe with them, their wife is going to consider whether or not they should be in this relationship. If you feel like you've been blindsided by the topic of divorce or that your wife doesn't feel safe with you, that's probably less about her holding on to something and not sharing it, and more just you not paying enough attention or minimizing the problem. Women can do this too. You might be on the other side of it. I think women are just as capable of being mean and controlling. So if that's you, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself. The only reason why I caution men more than women in doing this is that men tend to have a harder time seeing the power dynamics, usually because they're in the more powerful position. And so sometimes the rage or avoidance they're seeing with their wife is actually a result of them not being emotionally available or mean. And so if you skip the step where you take accountability for how you've showed up and you're only looking at the presenting problem, which is her reaction, that might create more imbalance or it may backfire. So this is tricky stuff. I'm not prescribing anything to you that directly because I don't know your situation. These are things to pay attention to. One question that you could ask yourself is who seems more scared, because that will give you more insight into who needs more of the softness and compassion first. I'll give you an example from my relationship. I tend to be the more avoidantly attached partner. I'm pretty balanced out at this point, but I still have my tendencies. Space can help me feel more resourced, and therefore I don't have that big fear that Jenny is going to leave me. I don't know why that is. It just doesn't strike fear into me in the same way that it can for her. Understanding this about myself and our dynamic means that she often needs more reassurance on her side that I'm not going anywhere, that I'm going to stay in the conversation, figure it out. Whereas I don't need as much of that. Another interesting reason why I think couples can treat each other poorly is that they simply don't understand what poor communication looks like. For instance, sarcasm can be a huge intimacy killer. Oftentimes, it's a way to communicate a resentment without actually saying it. Personally, I've tried to remove almost all the sarcasm from my communication because I see this fact. I may use it occasionally in playful ways, and still sometimes I accidentally take a jab at Jen very subtly, and she's like, hey, that didn't feel good. I may joke about her wanting things to be more clean, germ-free, which has been a sensitive spot for me. I consider myself a clean and organized person, but Jenny has brought in a whole new layer of this when it comes to things we can't see. And I've had to realize that there's validity to her way of looking at things. We've gone back and forth on this. So if I were to say something like, oh, you're washing the counters again, that might not feel good for her. And I can see that even though I'm not saying it, what I'm doing is judging her. So sarcasm is a way that we can actually be pretty mean to people covertly. And I think for the most part, it's a sloppy way to communicate. You've probably seen this in your life with your families or friends. Someone will make a disparaging, sarcastic comment, and the vibe just changes. And for some family systems, that is how they communicate. They just punch each other back and forth. Oh, we're family. We can do things like that. I don't know. I mean, I know that you can get used to that. And it might even feel endearing in some weird way. But I think it only works if you remove vulnerability from the conversation, meaning we're only going to operate at a surface level, not talk about anything deeper, try not to be impacted by anything too much. Then I guess it can work. But I will say that when I have adults come to see me and they feel like they're the canary in the coal mine, they're the only person in the family that sees just how dysfunctional it is, I think they're right. When we marry someone, they essentially become part of our family more and more over time. And as they do that, we can start to treat them more like our family. So if your family is dysfunctional, critical, mean, controlling, you're susceptible to creating that culture in your own home. Another reason why we're mean to our partners is that the closer we get to them, the more we're going to treat them the way that we treat ourselves. I love understanding this concept because it often allows me to go right to the heart of the matter when I'm helping people with their relationship. People that struggle with low self-esteem and insecurity are often pretty critical, and therefore they treat their family and their partners critically. And on the flip side, people that are more insecure, have lower self-esteem, are willing to put up with more meanness because at a core level, they believe that they don't deserve any better. This is what creates really toxic relationships because on one hand, you have one person that's highly abusive to themselves and others. And then you have another person who has way too much tolerance for abuse, if that makes sense. But it can also show up in really subtle ways. And we're also trained and conditioned on what we should expect in marriage. So for a lot of women who are 40 plus, a good husband when they were growing up was probably someone who had a job, could buy a house, and who wasn't beating the shit out of their wife. That was a decent baseline back then. So a lot of women now who are learning about emotional safety are struggling because their husbands don't get it. That was not part of the agreement when they got married. And now they're bringing in this new thing. And the husband's like, what the hell? I thought we were good. And now you want more, or you want less of my juvenile behaviors. It's a tricky thing, right? I think men are really being called to grow, and it's uncomfortable. This is not a math problem or an engineering problem. It's something totally different. The final reason why I think couples can be mean to each other is that they're simply unaware. So I'll give you an example. If one partner says something mean to the other and the other partner says something mean back or gets defensive, the partner that was initially mean doesn't get all the information. They don't actually see that what they said hurt their partner. They just experience the reaction. So part of our job in marriage is to check in. If we think we crossed a line, we could say something like, hey, I could see how what I said was hurtful there. I'm sorry. Or, hey, I could see that what I said might have hurt you. Did it? And if so, are you open to telling me more about that? And then on the flip side, if we are the receiver of a mean comment or tone, it really is our job to give our partner good information. Hey, that stung when you said that. That hurt my feelings. Because if we just go into our own reaction, our own blame, they don't get to see that part of us. That's really the most important part to see. And I know that it's hard to break patterns. A lot of times when couples come in to see me or us, there's been 100 or 1,000 small cuts, maybe a few big cuts. And so it's not a clean slate. Introducing new ways of doing things can mean that we have to set some of our stuff aside temporarily in order to tend to the other. And the idea is that we can start to take turns caring for each other in this way. It's not one-sided. I know I work with a lot of men. Men tend to be more unaware of their hurts. They just feel frustrations. I know you have a story to share too. In all honesty, I really get annoyed when I see couples being mean to each other because on a very basic level, no one should have to teach you how to be kind. We all learned about that in like first grade. We learned how to say please and thank you. We learned how to ask for things that we want. We learned how to share. Those are basic concepts. And so when I see adults treating each other shitty, I'm like, no, you know better. Maybe no one's called you out, but this looks like pure entitlement to me. If you ever catch yourself being mean to your partner, here's my quick advice. Be an adult and don't talk to your wife in a way that you wouldn't be okay with another man talking to your wife. That's the standard. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. I have another men's retreat happening September 25th to 28th in St. George, Utah. It's a really solid group of guys at this point. Most are return participants, so the culture is already really solid. And I keep these pretty small, probably 12 max. So there's only a few more spots available for this year. If you want more info, email me at bryce@brycebauer.com. Please like or write a review or, do all that stuff that helps me get the word out. I do this for free. I don't run any ads. So if you would take a minute, it really helps me feel motivated to keep doing this. And of course, if you find an episode that you think is good, useful, and one of your guy friends could use it, share it with them. Be like, hey, dude, I know you're going through some stuff. It's a podcast that I listen to. It's 15 minutes. Let's talk about it. That is all I have for today, and I'll see you next week.